Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of The County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. Today we are going to talk about Secretarial Order 3310. This was a directive signed by the Secretary of the Interior in December of last year. This directive told all of the BLM offices across the nation to go out and re-inventory land and analyze it for wilderness characteristics. The idea being that you would manage it as wilderness characteristics or for its wilderness characteristics and protect them until Congress could decide what to do about it. Well, there are a lot of people who are not very happy with this, and they feel that it is not following the letter of the law. There are other people who think it's a pretty good idea. Regardless of which side of the issue you fall on, it has brought contention. Initially, the Utah Association of Counties filed a lawsuit to challenge it. And after consideration and review, the state of Utah also filed a lawsuit to challenge it. And these have created controversy not only here, but have actually been the source of conversation in the surrounding states. We're going to look at that issue, and we're going to debate the merits of the initiative and the lawsuit itself during the course of today's show. So let's bring you up to speed on Secretarial Order 3310.
Federal power versus state power. This is a conflict that's as old as the Union itself. The states, of course, want their autonomy. The federal government is dealing with the Constitution and trying to keep things fair among the states. It's a federalist system. The federal government, the central authority, is meant to regulate interstate commerce and to try to keep things balanced. The sharing of power runs into problems, however, in cases where the federal government is the primary landowner in a given state. Holding the deed to 60% of the land in Utah, Washington, D.C. has a great deal of power in dictating what happens on that 60%. When late last year, Order 3310 was issued, which is better known as the Wildlands Initiative, an outcry could be heard from leaders in states like Utah.
The problem with the Wildlands Order is it expands administratively without any congressional support the default assumption of wilderness protection from 3.2 million to 9.5 and possibly even more.
A county-by-county inventory of lands began about a decade ago with all of the stakeholders brought together to decide definitively which lands would be set aside for wilderness and which would be stewarded by local authorities for other purposes. Wildlands could potentially supersede those already laid plans, which is angering some local leaders who have spent years working on these management policies.
We put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. There was a lot of money that went into that. And when Congress designates wilderness, you know, that should be the end of it.
You know, the wildlands policy essentially directs the department to inventory any land that's involved in a bill before Congress to designate wilderness. Well, read Red Rock or Citizens Wilderness Proposal. Well, so there's half of the BLM land in Utah that essentially they have to evaluate it not with wilderness or wildness as an equal opportunity, but as the primary use on those lands.
We've been through the process. We think this is absolutely ridiculous to go back and relook at wilderness.
Those on the environmental side see wildlands in a different light.
What this inventory would do is it would add information in the planning process. So it guides the planning process. So there's a diversity of sort of natural features and natural values that will be included in these wildlands assessments and evaluations. And this will add a balance to looking at whether it's best to use them in some consumptive way, or it's better to balance it and use that in more protective way for wildlife and quiet recreation.
The Wildland Initiative has been temporarily defunded on the federal level, but the order still stands. In Utah, the counties have filed a lawsuit challenging the Secretary of Interior's authority to give the order. 2 weeks ago, the state joined in that fight.
Uintah County first brought this lawsuit in the fall of last year before the Wildlands Order was even issued, because they could see things happening on the ground. They could see everyday occurrences where BLM was treating non-WSA lands as if they're wilderness.
In the long battle between state control and federal authority, the Wildlands lawsuit has the potential to be far more than just a speed bump on the road to compromise.
So there isn't really a balance in a local land use plan, and that's to give them credit. They're managing their own resources to serve their constituents. I understand that, but they don't have the diversity of expertise and analysis and background to give a comprehensive plan that would be adequate for looking at their habitat and watersheds.
State and local governments must have a say in how public lands are managed. Otherwise, why have those public lands? Why call them part of the state of Utah?
Now, whether or not they will have that say will be decided by the courts. We'll be discussing the merits of both the initiative and the lawsuit coming up in our roundtable discussion. For the county seat, I'm Terry Wood.
We are going to discuss 3310 and the litigation surrounding it. We have representatives on our roundtable discussion today who will cover the different sides of the story representing the state, federal, and local government levels. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more of the county seat.